So let's step through practice practicum 0. And what we'll see is that we have a set of rules that we're going to have to follow. And so when you start a practicum, make sure you read the rules and understand what you're in for. It says that we'll have 75 minutes to complete the practicum. It will commence at the start of the lab period. So as soon as the lab begins, we can start that practicum, and it will end at the end of the lab period. We'll need to complete the questions in order, so they're going to build on each other. Question 1 can be solved using the provided algorithm, so we'll get an algorithm that we can use, we can apply and solve the first problem. Question 2 is going to require us to extend our solution from question 1, and question 3 is going to require us to extend our solution from question 2. So we have a reference sheet that we can use. I won't be using it in these examples, but you would have that available to you. And we're not allowed to seek help from other people, from any internet source, or any other students. But of course there are TAs in the practicums that if you have any misunderstanding of what is being asked, you can ask them. And then it says all of our code will be passed through a MOS similarity, software similarity detection system. And so this is something that checks whether or not we're copying off our neighbor, for instance, or sharing code. Okay, so if we go on, we'll see that there's a description. Hello world is problem 1, and it says this is the first classic problem, print out hello world followed by a new line. So you'll see that it's broken down always as input, processing, and output. So we're not getting any input for this problem. We're not doing anything, any processing of data. We are just outputting, and it says the output of the program is a single line containing the phrase hello world. So, and then we have an example which will be more useful as problems get bigger. Input, output. So no input, and there will be some output. So we write all of our code on the left hand side, and when we are done with that, we're going to click this button that says check it, and we can do that right now just to see what happens, and we'll get an error message, or not an error message, but it will say, hey, your output is nothing, and we expected hello world. So our check failed, but that's okay because we can run that as many times as we want. And so it says write code here. There's a comment line, so I'm going to go ahead and write my code here, and you can use all the same things that you would before, and so we can use system.out.println, and we can, I'm just going to type like this for now, hello, make a few mistakes intentionally here so we can see what happens. So first of all, I'm going to leave it just like that, and those that know recognize the fact that I've got problems. So if I hit check it, you can see, oh, we've got an error message. So when we check it, we will get error messages within this box, and if you've got a lot of errors, you can make it bigger, but it says problem 1, Java 6, so on line 6 there's an error message, error, it says ending parentheses expected, and so it's really confused as to what is taking place. So you would first look and say, oh, and it's missing a semicolon. Okay, there's a lot going on, and so you would look back there. It's like, why would it be expecting? What is it not seeing? I thought I was doing the right thing, and you might then recognize, oh, I'm passing in a string, so I'm going to need some quotes around it. So maybe I recognize the fact that, oh, it's just confused. So I'm going to check that, and there's more errors, fear not, because I did not put in a semicolon. And so now we can go ahead and put in a semicolon, and now it should compile fine, but we'll see that I've inflicted a logic error. Oh, it passed. So it didn't. Apparently we're checking that as case insensitive, but I'm going to put in a comma so you can see what that looks like if there is a logic error. So it's expecting hello world. I've passed it hello comma world, and so what you can see is that if you get the output wrong, if something's wrong with the logic, you'll get this red, this is the output I've given it, and the blue tells us what is expected. And so I can fix that. In fact, I'll properly fix it with the capital W, which apparently it didn't check for, and then we can pass. Okay, so now we're done with problem 1. And so we were told that we might require that solution for problem 2. So I might even just copy my solution, even though I know we can generate that again. And so I will just place it in here. And so it says, extend your hello world problem from part 1 by reading in a single name using the code, and then print out hello name, where name is the word that was read in. Okay, so it also gives us information. When we see these little information boxes, that's helping us out a little bit. It says, remember, this is how you read in a word. And so we need that scanner class, that's already imported. So you can see here, the code has given us import java.util.star. And one of those items in the utilities library is the scanner object. We have it. So I don't have to import java.util.scanner. It's been done for us. If I typed it in again, it wouldn't cause any problems. So reminding ourselves that we need the scanner, and taking from the word here, we're creating a new scanner object, we're calling it in, and the way that we instantiate a new scanner object is new scanner, and this one we specifically want to read in from the keyword system.in. Okay, from any input. Okay, so we've got that, and then we need to read in a name, and so we're really given a lot of information here. And so the way that we're going to do that is we say string, we're creating a new string variable, we're calling it name, and we're using in.next, which says use the next method available within our scanner so in.next, it's going to look at the next line of input and read in that next line into the variable name. Okay, so that's all fine. So our input is that single word. We'll check that we've done what we've been asked to do above. The input will consist of a single word that will be incorporated into a phrase and printed out. Okay, so I've read in the word here, but my output at the moment is the same as problem 1. System.out.println hello world. Okay, so it says for output though, what we want to do, and so we can run this just to see that it kind of can see what's working here. So we're now, it runs, so I don't have any logic error or any compile time or syntax errors in the lines I've added. It is running, but there's of course a logic error because I read in that name and I have done nothing with it. And so we can see I'm still outputting hello world, but I'm expected to take that name that I read in and output it. So we can look at this and say, oh yeah, it looks like I'm receiving Alice, Bob, and then Carol as some of my input, and I'm doing nothing with them. So then it says output hello followed by a space, the word that was read in, and then an exclamation point. Okay, so instead of world, I want the first one to be Alice, and I'll just show you by hard coding it like that. And we do look at the code, so we would check that this wasn't done. I would technically pass check 1, right? I've output hello Alice, but I'm failing the other 2 tests, and the reason is I didn't do what was expected. So with practicums, we look through the code to make sure that you're doing what's asked and not just something to pass the test. So in this case, I haven't done what was asked. I have only hard-coded. I've changed my output based on this example. But really what I want to be doing is concatenating. And so I want to put in here, like, hello name, whatever that is. Okay, but the way that I want to do that is I want to have that string hello space, and then I want to concatenate, and I want to add in the variable name, and then concatenate again. I want to append a exclamation point at the end. So if I do that and check it, I'm gonna add a little space here because it bothered me. Then I pass all of those tests. Okay, now again, we were told that this might build upon, problem 3 might build upon problem 2, so I'm just going to copy that and then move over. It's totally okay to copy from problem to problem like that. And so I'll go ahead and paste that in, and we'll see how it changes. Okay, so now here's where it gets a little fun. It says read in a single word and print out hello reverse, where reverse is the reverse of the word that was read in. So it gets a little bit more fun. And so the input is the same as problem 2, so I believe I won't have to change line 6 or 7 here. Still need the scanner, still need to read in a name. And then it says your program must reverse the word it reads in and then output the result. So, except instead of saying hello, we're going to say goodbye. R, where R is the reversed word. And terminate the line with a new line. Okay, so it's very similar, but essentially what I'm going to need, and I'll just put this in, is I'm going to have something like this, and I'm just going to set it equal to name to begin with, and what we're going to have is something that looks like, I'll put this on its own little line so we can see, instead of hello, we're saying goodbye, and what we want to have is we're going to say goodbye to whatever reverse is with the exclamation mark. So I'm going to just check it to sort of see that we don't have any syntax errors in that first bit, which is, it's great to use the check it button. We don't, that doesn't impact anything. It's like running it when you're writing your own problem. You would do that frequently and just make sure that you're not missing any semicolons, so you don't have to look through 100 lines. You just look through the last few lines that you've written. Okay, so what we see is, in our example, we're saying goodbye, Alice, and what's expected is goodbye, Isila. And there's obviously an example, and so you can think to yourself, why did I pass check 2? I didn't reverse anything. So this would be a name that is the same backwards as forward, right? Like Hannah, assuming there's, no, if it's case insensitive or spelled in all caps or something, but it's some name that's the same forward as backward. Okay, so that was just probably a check to make sure that we could see that you were still at least outputting something. Okay, so how are we going to reverse this name? If we want to reverse the string, I'm going to now change what we're doing because we want to actually end up with the reverse of a string. And in fact, if we check it again now, test 2 will fail. And because we're always just saying goodbye space. And so what we want to do is actually reverse, there we can see our prediction that this was a name that was the same forward as backwards. All lowercase Bob is still lowercase Bob when we reverse it. What we want to do is go through each of the letters from last to first and append that into our new string called reverse. And so we can do that by using a for loop. And so we can say for int I equals, and in this way we're going from, so the length of the string, so I'm going to start off by saying if I was going to go forward through it, I would say we're going to let an integer I start from 0. The first index of a string is at index 0, and until I is less than name dot length. Oops. dot length. Okay, and then we would let I go up. Now we can do this, and I can go through and say what we would do for that, and then I'm going to show you another example where we actually go backwards. So we can do that, and the way that we would do that is say reverse, and we can say plus equals, which is the same as saying reverse equals reverse plus. In fact, we'll just do that so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm starting with what's held in reverse, and what I'm going to do is append another letter. And so the way that I'll do that is I will say I want whatever is in name, and then I want that character at the character found at index. If I said I, you can start with that so you can see what it outputs. Like start with what you want and then run it. We'll see if that how that functions. Oops. Oh, I have mistyped. I made this capital. Java is case sensitive. And so now it's working. But essentially what I'm doing is I've gone forward, right? I've gone from index 0 all the way up to the end of the last index in the name. And what I want to do is reverse it. Okay, so I can fix that without changing my for loop. I said we could run that backwards, but the other thing that I can do to fix that would be to name.length length minus I, and that means first we're going to subtract 0, then we're going to subtract 1, then we're going to subtract 2 all the way down to, but not including name.length. And hopefully you see that there's a problem in that, but I'll run it and we'll get the error, and then this would be a common thing that people would try. So we'll try that and we'll see that it's going to fail. It's all unhappy. And you can read what it asks for, but it's going to say that the string index is out of range. Okay, and the reason for that is, you can do a quick mental math that says, okay, so I'm going from the end of the string down to 0 is what we're thinking. But if you look at this, what you realize is it starts at something that seems about right, like name.length minus 0. I'm starting at the end, and then I'm going to go down to, I want to go down to 0. But because this is I less than, what happens is you're not going all the way down to 0. In fact, what we're doing is we're starting past the end of the string, because the index, name.length returns the length of the string. And so if I have the name Bob, for instance, I have 3 characters in the string Bob. So it would return 3. But what this would start off as here is 3 minus 0. So I'm starting at index 3, but in reality, Bob has 3 characters, but they start at index 0. So it has character at index 0, and index 1, and index 2. Okay, so this is not quite right. So the way that I would have to fix this is to have a minus 1 in there. And so now we can run it and see that we pass the test. But that feels really clunky, maybe, or I think it does. And so I'm gonna now show you an alternate way. So this is the first way that works, and maybe what I'll do is just keep this, so those that like this will have that in their solution set. But I'm gonna copy and I'm gonna paste it, and I'm going to show you a way that we could have done that differently. Okay, so if I wanted to do this in a way that's a little bit, I think, easier to understand, I'm going to start over, and I'm going to set my initial condition for this loop to be the last character. Okay, and so that is the number of characters in the string, name.length, but the last index is the number of characters minus 1, right? So I'm going to put that minus 1 in here. Then I'm going to say, okay, what do I have to check for? When do I know I'm going to get kicked out of this loop? That is going to be when I'm going to stay in it as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, great. And then what do I do every time I get to the end of a cycle within this loop? I'm going to decrement I. So instead of I plus plus, in this scenario, I see I minus minus. And now I don't have to change I'm just going to grab the character at that specific index. And so in my mind, this is easier to sort of see what I'm doing. And so I prefer to write a loop like that. That's up to you, both paths. Okay. And that is the end of Practice Practicum 0. Good luck.